yet another episode of CIO Dimension's Innovation Talk series. I am Radhika Nalayam, Managing Editor of CIO Dimension. In this episode, I'm thrilled to be in conversation with Anuj Gupta, the founder and CEO of Gradient Advisors. Gradient works directly with founders, CXOs, and VCs on a long-term basis, helping them get the AI piece right in their organization. Anuj is an AI and machine learning expert with a global reputation. He comes with over 2 decades of experience spearheading end-to-end AI efforts at CXO level for both startups and Fortune 50 companies. He also co-authored a major book in AI, which gives a pragmatic view of how to do AI right when you're part of a product team as opposed to research labs. The book is endorsed by top leaders in AI, including those from CMU, UCSD, DeepMind, Google AI, Microsoft Research, to name a few. The book is already translated into 4 languages and is being used by over 40 universities around the globe. I'm really excited to have him around. Welcome, Anuj. Great to have you here today.
Thanks a lot, Radhika. Thanks for the generous introduction. And thank you so much for having me here.
My pleasure. So let's just dive into the conversation and let's start off by asking the $1 million question, which is basically why do AI projects fail? I think some of the industry estimates show that somewhere about 60 to 80% of AI projects are still failing. I want to understand why is this number so significantly high even now? I mean, we've been working on this technology for decades now. What are some of the common pitfalls that enterprises should avoid in your experience? You've been working with many companies over the years.
Yeah, Radhika, that's a great question. And unfortunately, that number is still very high. There is multiple reasons for that. This varies anywhere from not having suitable data. So we all know data is the very foundation of AI. So not having either enough data in terms of quantity or not having enough data in terms of quality is one of the key reasons why a lot of projects fail. This typically results in models which are not good enough to do the job. Other than this, there are things like the kind of data on which you trained the model has become very different from the kind of data the model is likely to see in the production. So this results in scenarios where your model is good, it's doing very well on the training data set, but when you take it to production, it actually starts to give suddenly very, very bad results, right? There are things like ill-formed problems. So, I mean, one of the most common examples of this is, and I've seen a lot of CXOs somehow having interest in this problem, but so they will imagine a brand has a bunch of collection of tweets. These tweets are regarding the brand and the products and all of that. And the common problem that you get from leaders is that, hey, can you look at this data and discover interesting insights? Now, why I call this an ill-formed problem is that if you give this problem statement to a bunch of humans, then the humans themselves will come up with very different results. So what is interesting to me might be very different from what is interesting to you, might be very different from what is interesting to a third person. Hence, defining here what is interesting clearly is extremely important, and that have not been done. Right? So all machine learning solutions today are at the end of the day an optimization problem. So if you don't know what you're optimizing for, you are not going to get a good solution. There are aspects like solution has constraints. So imagine you're going to take a machine learning system that's going to be deployed in a factory where the conditions are, and this is a vision-based solution. The conditions are going to be extremely hot and humid, because of which there might be dew on the lens of the camera. Now, when you are designing or creating the initial versions of the solution, you might not have factored this at all. So you might not have factored the fact that This is not going to be deployed on a cloud, but this is going to be on an edge device. And there are going to be conditions like this, in which case the solution fails, right? So, or not having or not solving the original problem, but you're actually solving a watered down variant of it because you are currently in a POC stage. But eventually, that is what you take it forward. And when you take it to production, it doesn't meet its objective. Another very large reason is that we need to understand that AI is at the end of the day a means to the end for businesses, right? This is to either generate newer pastures or revenue or strengthen their positions or create a new edge in the market. Now, being able to create models is one thing, but being able to achieve this outcomes is a completely different ballgame. And a lot of projects fail from going from once having built the model to being able to create the desired business outcomes. So these are some of the key issues that I've seen. But the one that I have seen the greatest is data. And I think that's one thing that enterprises should be very, very careful of. So every organization that I've spoken to has petabytes of data, but at the same time, very few of them have the data sets at hand which can be used for machine learning. And the example that I give to all of them is if data is like the crude oil, your machine learning models are like the fighter jets. Fighter jets, unfortunately, cannot fly on crude oil. They need a very specialized fuel to be able to fly. And what is needed is setting up refineries, which can take up the crude oil and can distill into various components. Likewise, what is needed in organizations are refineries, which can ingest all the raw data, but can continuously produce various us or various types of data in terms of quality. And some of this then can be used to build AI systems.
Right, that's very well summarized. That example just put things in perspective. Could you just take us through some examples of companies that you have worked with so that we have a better understanding of what this refinery really means and what kind of preparations they need to have before really venturing into a major AI project. So some examples that
Absolutely.
that comes to your mind.
So this varies from different kind of flavors, right? But in one particular case, we actually developed a bunch of solutions which were vision based project. The idea was to understand what kind of documents people are uploading, and for this, fortunately, we could gather a lot of data from the internet and third party sources, and we were able to build a very good solution. But in the same organization, we were trying to solve a bunch of other problems whereby the data was not available outside. We could not, even if we wanted to buy, we cannot go and buy that data. So in that case, we had to go back, create systems that could systematically correct, curate all the data in-house, then clean all that data, get that data labeled, and then we started building solution once we have a sizable amount of data set. One is to understand that today technology has shortened a lot of aspects within the AI life cycle. One thing that still remains very long and challenging is data collection. Data collection can go anywhere between 6 to 12 months at least if you want to build a decent system that actually delivers the result in production. So likewise, for another organization, we had built a chatbot that could talk to people in their local language. And for this, there was not enough data that was there on the internet. While there is a data, but not all of that could be used directly. So in this case, we actually created secondary systems where people could come and chat on their social media platforms with bots. And we used that to bootstrap the entire system. Right? Uh, in another case, this was a very large enterprise that had a bunch of AI models that were serving over 200 enterprises. But the organization did not had a very good sense of how good their systems were performing. They had certain metrics, but these metrics were not painting a realistic picture. So in this case, we had to go back, create a very detailed framework for them to first define the correct metrics, the metrics that will paint the reality. Second, then build secondary systems that would evaluate on a daily, weekly, monthly basis their systems on these metrics. Uh, Likewise, in another case, there was a team that was building a bunch of models in computer vision to identify various objects and help people take a better product photograph. Now, the team that was originally assembled was very inexperienced. These were fresh graduates. They had created a bunch of models by reading a lot of stuff on the internet. But at some point, they actually hit a ceiling and they were not able to take these systems beyond certain numbers in terms of accuracy. Right? This is where we found that these people did not necessarily understand a lot of machine learning in its bones, the fundamental maths that is going behind these models. And this is where we had to step in and we had to bring in better set of people who were typically had done masters or PhD in machine learning, who could look at a problem from first principles, define, understand the fundamental maths behind it, define the whole problem statement very well, and then go about the whole job systematically. So the kind of things differ a lot from organization to organization. But one of the things that I've seen is that the teams that typically collect, curate, process the data very systematically are the ones that are able to make much better progress as compared to others.
Yeah, so data is really at the heart of the entire thing. Also, when you work with the leadership teams, Anuj, do you see any gaps, especially the technologies in place? Now you have the team in place. You also have the data in place, assuming all of these are checked. Where do you see the gap at the leadership level in terms of whatever that is?
So, couple of things. One, a lot of people at leadership level don't fully understand that while AI systems are a piece of code at the end of the day, just like traditional software engineering, but the way you develop these systems is anything but software engineering. So they are still trying to apply the kind of people practices or project practices that they have developed while developing a traditional software. Another thing that I have seen quite a lot is that today, if you go anywhere and you start reading about deep learning, it will talk about neurons and then it will say how human brain works and how deep learning models try to in some way mimic how neurons are connected. But the models today are anything like a human brain. So this analogy of comparing a deep learning model to human brain, especially for a lot of non-technical leaders, sets very unrealistic expectations. So when a model makes a very silly mistake, they're not able to understand why is it making. They typically think it is because the team is not good enough. Or when you give more data to the model and the model is not able to improve on the mistakes that it is making, they're not able to understand that. The common argument that I've heard is even a 3-year-old kid can understand it is making a mistake and it will correct it. Why can't a model do that? Right? Uh, these models, while they have uh, been motivated from how the human brain works, but they are anything but the human brain, right? Another aspect that I've seen is that, let us suppose a project has gone to a level whereby, say, the accuracy is 88% or 89%, right? Now, in software engineering, going from A to B, so once you have the base system, then everything in, is typically fairly easy. You have to release a patch and then things are all fixed. In AI, it's completely the different. Going from 89 to 91% could take far longer time than what it took you from coming from 0 to 89. So there are a lot of these aspects that a lot of these leaders don't understand, and I don't blame them. This is a very, very nuanced technology. People are still wrapping their heads around them. Uh, but in my humble opinion, one of the things I suggest is, uh, don't treat this AI as artificial intelligence, as something that's going to replace the human. But I think it's best to treat it as augmented intelligence. There is a human. How can you make their job easy? I think that's a better way to set expectations and then take things to success.
Great, that's interesting. I love the way you put it, that AI is anything but human, which is good news for all of us, while AI seems to be taking over jobs and replacing humans in many places. Anyway, I'm not going there. Where I'm heading to now is the most hyped or hot topic in the industry, which is generative AI. Everybody wants to know about it. So we know it has been creating a lot of buzz in the industry of late, especially after the launch of products like ChatGPT and similar other products in the market. Um, but help us kind of put things in perspective here. I want to know what kind of impact will ChatGPT have on a typical enterprise who want to really work on this technology and want to kind of reap the benefits of this technology. What are some of the use cases that realistic use cases that you see emerging in the enterprise sector in recent in recent times or months, maybe in the next 1 year or so?
To be very honest, I mean, this space is just started to explode. I think there is a lot more going to happen. And I think this is one of those areas of AI or a branches of AI where you see a lot of business success coming out. Uh, so if you think carefully, right, I mean, all these models are extremely good at generating text or images or videos. Now, if you look at our life in last 20 years, right, especially because of social media, content has become extremely important. This could be for entertainment purposes, this could be for marketing purpose, this could be for education purpose. The purposes are many, but content creation is a core thing that we see all around us. Now, owing to generative AI, today a lot of this content generation can be drastically automated. The speed at which you can generate, the kind you can generate, I won't say it's gonna replace human again. I mean, if you look at images that is created by human versus the images that are kind of created by some of these models, these are very different also. So maybe the kind of creativity humans have will continue, but then there's also going to be a machine generated creativity that's going to come up. But the landscape of, think of a typical marketer, right? What does they need in order to run a campaign? They need a 45 to 90-second video, which contains a couple of images, which contains scripts, which contains certain humans. Now, what they can do with all of this? So one, they can generate all the content or a large part of the content from machines. So in content creation, creating the V0 is often the hardest. Iterating on top of it is easier. Now that V0 can be created very quickly by these machines, right? In order to get images, you don't need to go to these image exchanges that existed long back and search painfully the kind of image that you want. You can now, there is a machine that you can go and tell it. If you can describe it exactly how you want in every detail, it will generate it for you, right? Uh, and then stitch all of that together. The second aspect of, so the cost part of producing a video traditionally versus generating a video via a lot of these bits and pieces coming from AI is one aspect, right? Second is the traditional videos were very generic for all kind of audience. Now, if you know, if you're releasing this video in a particular part of the world, your actors, their habits, their environment can all come from that part of the world, which means these are highly personalized videos. The content is extremely personalized to those kind of people, right? So this is what's going to happen very rapidly. And this is where I think another very interesting aspect will come up, which is being able to create the business notes. So one use case is take your own photograph and create an avatar out of it. Now every human is going to come, they're going to try, they're going to have fun, create 5, 10, 15 of avatars and all of that. Maybe pay some money also for to be able to do that. But that's going to be pretty much it. A very small fraction is going to come on a daily basis or on a weekly basis or monthly basis and keep creating avatars. On the other hand, imagine you create a studio where a marketer can create their marketing video using this technology. Now, this is a solution for the enterprises. The earlier one that I suggested was a solution for individual users. What I spoke about earlier is not a sustainable business model. It is extremely good, it's geeky, a lot of users gonna come. Suddenly you'll see a lot of interest going up. But then if all that interest is not gonna translate into long-term sustainable revenue, right? In the second case, it is very clear that if you do this well, if you can create the suit, right, you can create a long-term sustainable business where a lot of organizations which have marketers who create these content on a daily, weekly, monthly basis will need this kind of a suit, can do their job very quickly. So there you see an opportunity to create a very large B2B business. While the former one, in this case, the B2C, is great, gimmicky, will get you a lot of attention, but will not get you long-term sustainable revenue.
Right. It's more geeky and good to experiment with, but there's no money in the long term. And we see a lot of the products, whether it is from Microsoft or Google or Salesforce or ServiceNow or even Zoom, come integrated with Chat GPT capabilities. So in a way or the other, every business would be knowingly or unknowingly using the Chat GPT capabilities to do the job better.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think of it, right, every organization that is building a product has something called FAQs, right? Now, if you can, today, you can give the entire product description to ChatGPT, and then it can answer questions on top of it for you. You ask anything. So you have already created a AMA kind of a thing on top of your product description, right? And for certain products, right, this becomes all the more important. So think of insurance. Now, everybody takes insurance policies, everybody signs them up. I doubt anybody more than 1% would have gone through the entire insurance policy and read it, right? But there are clauses in there which matter a lot. Now, for insurance organizations, this is a great value proposition. Today, your customer can come ask you anything around that. You can educate them, right? And this is how you can leverage the whole piece, right? So similarly, think of software contracts. Now, whether organizations want you to read them or not read them is a different question, right? But again, same thing, right? And then there are capabilities like uh, if you think autopilots, right? Things that can start to code for you and can assist you in all of that, right? All of that are going in the direction of what I call as augmented intelligence, right? So it's not going to be case that these machines today at least can completely replace the programmer, but they can easily create that boilerplate code for any programmer depending on the problem statement, where they have to just go and fill up certain parts and the whole thing will be up and ready for you, right? uh, think of recipes, right? uh, we all would love to cook those recipes which are much more detailed and complex and all of the stuff, but it's not possible to go through all of that. Now, using chat gpt, you can very easily imagine you're an organization which is selling raw material, right? Whereby you can order this box for you, it comes to your home, and you need just 30 minutes to cook. Now, in order to cook, what is needed is a recipe, and you might be somebody who might not have even cooked a tea or a Maggie in your life. But here is a system that you can develop very easily, saying, here is the step one, here is the step two, here is the step three. You have any questions, you can ask us. So yeah, they're going to completely transform how we have been working with the world. I think very soon you'll see Chat GPT powering a lot of these use cases
Right.
practically.
And I think for now, we all have to get better at giving prompts, to,
Yes.
yeah,
So,
so that's,
so today what you have is somebody to assist, but that somebody can work for you 24/7, as long as you can be extremely specific in your instructions. If you can go down to that minutest of the detail, it will good. It will do you a very, very good job.
now another controversial aspect of generative AI is, of course, how it has to be regulated. So now that's like bringing regulation into generative AI is like, that topic is like opening the Pandora's box, right? I think recently the OpenAI CEO himself called for the need to regulate generative AI, and how it can go quite wrong, he said, use that word, if it's not regulated, right, properly. So what is afoot for organizations in the coming days on the regulation side? If you could just give us a idea on that.
So, couple of aspects here. So, one, we have to understand that today's AI is not what is artificial general intelligence or AGI. So, the human being is closer to what is AGI, right? The scenarios that we see where robots can take over humans and we have to find another planet and all of that. I think that is going to happen once AGI happens. And at least it seems that today we are no closer to AGI. So if you look at how science typically develops, right, there are three steps in it. One is possibility, the second one is feasibility, the third is optimality. So for the longest time, we have never had models that can understand human language. Now, one of the things they found back in 2015-16 were a bunch of techniques that promised something, but they saw that the larger the models, the better they become. So today, the research community is running after possibility in the first place. Can you even produce a model that can get you anywhere closer to the way human language is, right? Chat GPT is one such system that has gone very close to that. But these are massive, massive, massive models, right? With trillions of parameters. Now, for most organizations, it is not possible to train these kind of systems for two reasons. One, the kind of data sets that are needed. We're talking of some of the largest data sets on earth. Second, the kind of compute cost and the kind of talent cost that is involved in this. Right. So teams like OpenAI and the Google AI and the DeepMind are sitting with some of the best brains on the earth. Right from academia to industry. Now that they have been able to do all of this, right? They have not done this for, for the larger good of the public only, right? They would love to monetize this. Now, in computer science, you cannot, uh, algorithms cannot be proprietary by very definition, the way they have been defined. What you can patent are systems. So these companies have always known that the algorithms will be known very soon to the entire world. Now, uh, this seems to be more attempts which are in line with how it happened with social media also. If you go back to some of those uh, testimonies and proceedings in the Congress, a lot of social media CEOs and founders have gone on to say it has a lot of evil effects and it should also be regulated. And we would love to work with the government. So this is more like a very tried and tested idea of painting a devil on the wall, then creating a license raj around all of this, so that they themselves can govern who can do and who cannot do. Right. But I don't think so in AI this is gonna happen. This is only gonna go bigger and bigger. But then there are gonna be nuances that's gonna come in. Things like, so OpenAI is, if you look at Chat GPT, it has been trained on the data of the internet, right? So it has data from Stack Overflow, Reddit, and a lot of other such sources. A lot of these companies own this data, but they have no share in the revenues of Chat GPT. And Chat GPT has been built on top of their data sets. So I think the next legal war where it's going to start is that if you are using our data, you need to give us a share of the of of the cake. Uh, so I think one of the things is gonna happen. A lot is gonna be on this side, and secondly, now that people have shown the possibility, some of the research will start to happen in these in terms of feasibility. Can we do the same thing with smaller models, right, which are well within our limits? And maybe then once we get there comes the much later question, what is the smallest model that can perform an equivalent performance, right, which is the optimality side of it, right? There's also going to be, and I believe where a lot of AI is going to unleashes. Today all the AI is about these massive models, but the need of the hour is also, I only have so much data. I have 3,000 data points or 5,000 data points or maybe 1 lakh data points. Can I build something out of this? So I call this machine learning for tiny data sets. I think where industry will explode is if a lot of research is done and there are tangible results in this area as well.
Yeah, I think we can talk about AI endlessly, right? I mean, we can talk about multiple aspects. Like, you mentioned for an enterprise, what it really means. We could go to how it can really fill the skills gap, for example. We could talk about, the artificial general intelligence, which you said, at some point, not, I guess it's far away, of course. But one question I want to ask, the last question in the interest of time is, to kind of understand that in the next 2 or 5 years, I think every organization will be using AI or generative AI, no matter what the size is and what the use case is. What do you think will really set the leaders apart from the laggards? You mentioned the availability of data. Considering all of that is there, what kind of approach or what really would set the leaders apart from the rest of the crowd?
Sure. So we have to understand that, right? For the industry, the end objective is revenue, right? So these are not research labs which are working for the betterment of the mankind. So one key aspect, like I discussed earlier, will be the use case that you solve. Do you solve a use case that is able to generate lots of revenue? So in a very interesting article by Anderson Horowitz, they compare three groups. in the AI journey seen so far. One is the groups that are the hardware and the infra, so the AWS and the Google clouds of the world. Second are the groups that are developing these algorithms for the deep minds and the open AIs and the Hugging Faces of the world. And third are the ones that are developing the end applications. Any guesses who is making the real revenue? So it is the first one. It is the ones that are developing the hardware and the revenues, the NVIDIAs of the world and the AWSs of the world that are actually making real revenue. Rest all are bleeding revenue. So that's also a very interesting reality of it. And we all know that industry is not going to carry on a project forever if it is not giving the necessary return, especially in today's time where every organization is extremely cautious of where they are spending their money. Right. So I think one key aspect will be what use case you are building for, and is it generating the kind of revenues that you were hoping for. Two, a lot of these organizations are not going to develop their own model. They're going to build on top of these models. And at some point of time in their use cases, they're going to hit ceilings. Right? So even ChatGPT is not perfect. It hallucinates. There are parts that it gets extremely wrong. Now imagine you are a company where that mistake matters a lot, which means you can no longer depend on ChatGPT. You'll have to create your own GPTX. And you are the XA, right? Your organization is the XA. So then the original data, compute capability, and talent capability will come back. Because now, so imagine we say ChatGPT say 89% correct, right? I mean, I am going back to the original example, and now you wanted to get to 91%. Your real battle will start now onwards. Now, until now, you have piggy banked big time over a third-party model, right? And so far, it did very well for you. But now you are working where that 2% gain really matters to you. So you'll have to build all of this on your own. And that is where having that AI maturity, understanding how AI is done grounds up will matter a lot. So in my humble opinion, I think these are the two key things that's going to differentiate the leaders from the laggards. The use case, and a couple of years later, when you start to hit ceiling, the AI maturity.
Absolutely. And this is a very exciting space. I'm sure, the days to come, we will have a lot to watch out for.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the rate at which all of this is moving from academia, or I would rather say research labs, even academia is finding hard to keep pace with this. I don't think so in the history of mankind this has ever happened. The typical lag between academia and industry has been at least 10 years, but now even academia is finding hard to keep pace with these labs. Yeah, we are in for a very, very exciting times where things are going to change very fast. I think EdTech, I mean, whatever Khan Academy is trying to do, they've already said it very clearly. I think a year from now, the way education in US in kindergarten, if today and will be from 1 year from now, will be very different. So that is the rate at which we're going to see changes in our own lifetime. And we are not going to be like for our kids or our grandkids that you're going to see a very different world. We'll see it by the year, literally.
Yeah, change is happening very fast. Fingers crossed, actually. Thank you so much, Anuj. Love this conversation and absolutely unique insights. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today.
Thank you so much, Radhik. Thank you for the lovely question. Bye-bye. Take care.
You too.